I had the pleasure of working for the UN Climate Treaty that's based out of Bonn in Germany and being the spokesperson for the Paris Climate Agreement. In 2009 in Copenhagen in Denmark, this was going to be the big moment when the world was absolutely going to sign this global treaty of action of all nations. It was because renewable energy had been growing and growing and growing. The prices had been dropping. In the end, we solved climate change because we chose to.
Hello, it's Michael Gove here, editor of The Spectator. Alongside Wolfe Power Club, we'll be holding a fantastic energy conference on Monday the 24th of November. We'll be bringing together people from politics, from industry and from the third sector to discuss the future of energy here in the UK and across the world. Get your tickets now.
Well, delighted to be with an absolute industry heavyweight at New York Climate Week. We've got Nick Nuttall, just for our listeners across the world in our 70 countries. Nick, tell us a bit about your almost few decades journey to energy perfection.
Yeah, thanks very much indeed. Today I'm a presenter with a digital TV show called We Don't Have Time, which some of your listeners may know, with a good audience, broadcasting exclusively on climate change and environmental issues. But my journey to that is a bit like a circular one. Originally I was a journalist in London in the 1990s, working for the Times newspaper, covering environment and science, in the days when the energy correspondent wasn't interested in wind power or wave power or solar power. Those were minor interests for him. He was interested in oil and gas, so I got to cover all those. And then very fortunately was invited to be the Director of Comms and the spokesperson for the UN Environment Programme. So that's based in Nairobi in Kenya for the world. So you see the world from a developing country point of view as well as going to many other countries. And then I had the pleasure of working for the UN Climate Treaty that's based out of Bonn in Germany and being the spokesperson for the Paris Climate Agreement. So I've sort of been round the block, as they say, in Britain and come back full circle to journalism again.
Now, just before we touch on this year's New York Climate Week, we are at the Spectator Energy Summit having 10 years on looking at what happened at Paris 2015. Why do you think it was possible? Because it's still seen as an unbelievable agreement that really might not be possible in today's climate. So why do you think it was possible 10 years ago?
Well, I think because it was possible also means other things could be possible too in the future. So I'd put that there straight away. Because, the climate change talks have been the most frustrating things over many, many years. And in 2009 in Copenhagen in Denmark, this was going to be the big moment when the world was absolutely going to sign this global treaty of action of all nations. But it collapsed. It was very bitterly treated between nations. And that was the end of the story, until it was built up again to Paris. And what was the difference between 2009 and 2015? I think personally it was because renewable energy had been growing and growing and growing. The prices had been dropping, and it got to a point in that period from 2009 to 2015 where even the big developing countries like China and India, who maybe had been blockers of a treaty in Copenhagen, and also the Americans a little bit, could actually see and glimpse that actually you might be able to decarbonize a global economy using renewables because the costs were tumbling so fast. And I think that was a key factor.
Now, Nick, as you said, you do a show these days from Scandinavia but goes across the whole world. What's been the kind of world reaction towards the kind of business developments in the States, such as suddenly projects, and we saw the fight recently between the US government and Equinor with the, say, banning of the wind and so on. How's the reaction been? Because you guys obviously have 3 million viewers, you probably get a lot of feedback on it. What's the reaction been in the last month to that announcement?
So I think that initially it was an incredible shock because it was the second time round for Trump, and the first time round, not much damage. This time, loads of damage, right, setting the United States back quite a long way. But interesting, on the show here, we had a guy from Columbia University who was actually listing the number of lawsuits that now are coming against the US government from states like California, but also other states, from people who are developing wind power, being told they have to stop it. There's all kinds of legal suits coming. Communities that had been promised, things like solar power on their roofs and in their communities to make them cleaner and make the air cleaner for their children, they're now bringing lawsuits as well to the US government. So I think it's watch this space. I think in terms of the global reaction, we saw it yesterday here in New York when heads of state from like over 100 countries came. They have to put down new climate action plans, more forward-looking. And China, for the first time, delivered an emission reduction plan. It's never delivered a plan to reduce its emissions. This is the first time it's done it because China is ripping forward on renewable energy in ways that only, the future could imagine was possible, but it's happening right now.
And looking at other things this week, obviously a big thing about energy security along with climate keeps on coming up. The almost wonderfulness about off-grid opportunities also gives security to countries. But there's also that concern that a huge amount of solar comes from one single country in terms of China, lead experts. How do you think that balance between the world really investing into things like solar, but also not committing to one nation state?
So, obviously the solar itself is universal, right? It's given to us by, some people might think God, some people think the Big Bang or something. But anyway, it's the universal, it's with us, right? China, has been very smart in actually creating a huge solar manufacturing industry. And I think other countries need to look very hard at that because I think just having one supplier is not really a cool idea, right? So, it may well be that a little bit of the subsidies that go to fossil fuels, and by the International Monetary Fund, this could be running well into the trillions globally. Maybe we could spend a little of that subsidy on subsidizing our own manufacturing of solar and also assisting the developing countries in Africa to create solar manufacturing plants as well. So I think there's a huge opportunity to actually diversify this manufacturing base. But clearly it's the way forward and everyone is sort of getting it now. It was interesting to hear banks like Chase and some of the other big banks in America just a few weeks ago saying that they were actually reducing their investments in fossil fuels. And this was unusual from these banks because they'd been a bit difficult to get them to fully embrace a climate-friendly future. But maybe they're seeing the risks of staying with fossil fuels, seeing the risk that many fossil fuels will become stranded assets and not good. And many pension funds know that too. So I think you're getting a switch now, even in the finance sector, that this is worth it. Just one thing, if Australia do actually get the next climate conference, COP31, it's going to be in Adelaide. And I was talking to the Adelaide chief of sustainability yesterday. That city is already 100% green powered. Wow. They're 100% renewable, mainly solar, plus some wind, plus a bit of biomass, this sort of thing. That's amazing. I didn't know it. Did you?
No, did not. And Nick, we can't end this without talking about your music. I think you've got an album with you in New York Climate Week. Are you able to lift it up and show our audience 70 countries?
Yeah.
So Nick, tell us about...
Can you see that there?
We can see it beautifully.
Right.
Nick, tell us about some of the songs and also some of the origins from the north of England, because a lot of our listeners are from energy companies in Warrington and work in all the surrounding areas. So,
that's a bit tricky, isn't it? Yeah. So, I had a little music career after university in the States, actually, way back in the late 70s, but then my father died and I just gave up music and felt I needed to get a proper job, which was as a journalist. Well, if that's a proper job, I don't know, but it was certainly a lot of fun on the Times. And then my girlfriend is German, and she's actually something of a pop star in Germany, Bernadette Lahengst. And she said, when are you writing your new album? In fact, when are you writing your first album? And I said, who wants to hear from an old guy? She goes, well, you might have some experience in life that could be of interest to people. And so, it's an album, but the last track was called Just Because Some Bad Wind Blows, on the back there. And that was the climate song, the main climate song. That was the most tough music I've ever written in my life, because much of climate music is a bit happy-clappy, or it's a bit, kind of dark and miserable. And I didn't want it to be that way. I wanted some message. So the message on that song is, in the end, we solved climate change because we chose to. And that it was a simple choice that humanity makes. Do you want to do it or not? Yes, we did it, and then there's no problem.
And do you think, because I think always music's had a big part to play in our culture, like that famous song Ghost Town was about obviously Thatcher closing down the mines and sick unemployment. Do you think music is a way that we can get people really engaged to actually really put pressure on their politicians and kind of make it a top topic that will win or lose elections, and it's almost music as a great way to get people engaged?
I think the arts in general have a big role to play. And I think they struggle a little bit on that. But the writer Ian McEwan has a new book out on climate change. Let's see how it's received. It's a very complex issue, is climate change. Writing a simple song, some people think it's too simple, it doesn't explain what's going on, but I think you need simplicity. But you need the heart, right? You need to shift perspectives on this. I think the Pope said it, the previous Pope said it when he was talking about climate change. He said, if you cannot imagine what the future would be like as a result of climate change, that is a poverty of the imagination. And I think we need to use our imaginations through the arts to actually stimulate a different, pattern of thinking about this. This is about the economy, sure, and it's about, jobs, and it's about a lot of different things. But it's also about an emotional reaction to what kind of world you really want for your kids, right? For the North of England people, I can say if you want to pick up this album, Girl in the Gallery is going to be your winner, about a second cousin from Blackpool who was a bit, unfortunately, mentally challenged, who fell in love with a painting in an art gallery in Bolton and went to visit his girlfriend every weekend on the bus, gave her a quick kiss when nobody was looking. That's called Girl in the Gallery. So, if you're from Bolton, that's a bit of a winner for you.
Thank you very much for that music. And once again, just for the whole channel, because your TV journalism now always concentrates on climate change. What's the channel and how can people view it?
Okay, WeDon'tHaveTime.org is the website. You can see it on all the social digital channels. You can see it on our own platform. Sometimes you'll see it on Bloomberg Green or Reuters and sometimes terrestrial TVs, mainly in the developing countries, so not in Warrington, but maybe in Rochdale. Is that a developing country? No, it's not. It's still part of the north. You can just go to WeDon'tHaveTime.org and see lots of content.
Thank you very much for your time, Sarah.